Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take complex source material on corporate giants and groundbreaking science and give you the comprehensive shortcut to understanding what really matters.
And today we are really cracking open the vault on a true biotech behemoth.
We really are. A company whose entire history is basically synonymous with the rise of modern medicine itself, Amgen Inc.
And when we call it foundational, I mean, we are talking about a company that has been there since the very, very first waves of biotechnology. Amgen's work is it's woven into the fabric of treatments for chronic kidney disease, severe anemia, supportive care for cancer.
Yeah.
They aren't just a major player.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, they define the game in several of these therapeutic areas.
Absolutely. The company started way back in 1980 with a name that, well, it perfectly captured its audacious goal. It was founded as Applied Molecular Genetics.
Amgen.
Amgen, exactly. It's the perfect portmanteau for a company built, entirely on translating the promise of recombinant DNA technology into actual, reliable pharmaceutical products.
And that combination of basic science, the molecular genetics part, and the commercial focus, the applied part, that really defined their trajectory from day one.
Right.
It signaled an intent to, rapidly move discovery out of the lab and into the clinic.
Exactly. So our mission today is driven by the sources you've shared with us. We're going to give you a comprehensive shortcut to understanding Amgen's full story. Their staggering modern scale, the history of their first blockbuster drugs, their core therapeutic focus, which now generates tens of billions a year, and the operational complexity of a company this big.
Which includes both stunning innovation in their pipeline and, some high-stakes legal challenges in the courtroom.
For sure.
And to set the scene, this isn't just a large company. This is a component of the financial and scientific infrastructure of the world. Amgen is ranked as the 18th largest biomedical company by revenue. Its economic standing is immense. It's a component of the NASDAQ 100, the S&P 100, the S&P 500, and critically, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. When you understand Amgen, you really understand how foundational biotechnology operates on a global scale.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting immediately with the sheer, undeniable scale of this company, just using the 2024 data to truly grasp the weight they carry in the economy. So looking at the 2024 financial snapshot, the numbers are, they're simply staggering. It really validates its place on all those indices you just mentioned. The total revenue figure sits at US $33.4 billion. That's the kind of revenue that dictates research directions for, entire sectors.
For the whole industry. And it's not just the sales volume, but the profitability demonstrates some serious operational maturity. We see operating income at, $7.26 billion and net income at $4.09 billion.
Right.
In an industry that is just defined by massive R&D failure rates and, patent cliffs, maintaining consistent multi-billion-dollar profits, it shows they've truly mastered that transition from discovery to efficient mass production.
They also have this colossal physical footprint and a huge balance sheet, with total assets reported at US $91.8 billion.
Right.
That scale of assets, the specialized bioreactors, the clean rooms, the complex supply chain infrastructure, and all that extensive intellectual property, it acts as a massive barrier to entry for any smaller competitors.
And that specialized infrastructure, it requires specialized talent. Their employee count worldwide sits at 28,000 people.
28,000.
And these aren't just staff. These are highly trained scientists, quality control experts, logistics professionals, all necessary to manufacture and distribute these complex biologic drugs all over the world.
Speaking of their blueprint, let's just ground ourselves geographically and historically for a second. The company officially launched on April 8, 1980, and its headquarters is still in Thousand Oaks, California.
Which is a crucial hub for the American biotech industry.
Absolutely.
And the leadership maintains a certain stability and a clear direction. Robert A. Bradway is the chairman, president, and CEO, while Howard Y. Chang is the chief scientific officer. The experience they've accumulated over 4 decades, particularly in managing the unique challenges of biologic drug development, that gives them a real operational edge.
Now, here's a corporate detail that is just absolutely critical for understanding Amgen's operational risk and their commercial strategy, and that's the extreme supply chain concentration in the U.S. distribution system.
Ah, yes.
We learned that Amgen receives approximately 80% of its total revenues from sales to just 3 large U.S. drug wholesalers.
80%.
That is a massive centralization of sales power.
It creates a fascinating strategic tension. Those 3 essential companies are McKesson Corporation, Cencora, which used to be AmerisourceBergen, and Cardinal Health.
Right.
These wholesalers, They control the last-mile distribution network across the whole country. They move drugs from the manufacturing plant to nearly every pharmacy, clinic, and hospital.
So the implication of having 80% of your revenue concentrated with just three partners has to be double-edged, right? On one hand, it drastically simplifies commercial negotiations. You have three massive contracts that determine most of your yearly cash flow.
Sure.
But on the other hand, it creates a massive dependency. Does that concentration mean they're trading reliability for massive market leverage against them?
Well, it creates leverage, yes, but for the wholesalers, not necessarily for Amgen. Amgen must employ highly sophisticated strategic countermeasures to manage this risk.
I'll bet.
I mean, they are likely engaged in these extraordinarily complex, volume-based contracts that include guarantees, specific payment terms, inventory sharing arrangements. Their logistics teams are probably dedicated solely to optimizing flows with just those three partners.
It also tells you something really profound about the power structure of the American healthcare ecosystem. Amgen can spend billions on R&D to create a groundbreaking drug, but if just one of those three wholesalers changes its terms or, faces a major logistical challenge.
Amgen's revenue stream is immediately at risk. They have to prioritize the health of those three relationships above almost everything else in their commercial operations.
Wow.
Precisely. It's a structural feature of the U.S. market, but that 80% figure, it's a loud warning signal about the intensity of that commercial dependency.
Yeah.
It really underscores why Amgen is constantly investing in supply chain resiliency and expanding its own global manufacturing footprint, sort of hedging against potential disruption in that core U.S. distribution channel.
And just to reiterate the global context of this scale, Amgen's economic power places it 134th on the Fortune 500 list and 22nd on the Forbes Global 2000.
It's a company that has moved far, far beyond the initial ambitious science project it started as in 1980.
No kidding.
They are a top-tier enterprise, but to understand how they actually achieved this status, we have to look back at those first crucial scientific and commercial leaps they made.
Which brings us perfectly to how they did it, those foundational scientific breakthroughs of the 1980s and 90s. So the launch of applied molecular genetics in April 1980 was, it was less a sure bet and more a testament to scientific optimism, really. It was backed by venture capitalists who were betting big on this nascent, relatively unproven field of recombinant DNA technology.
Right.
And their initial focus wasn't even the eventual blockbusters. They were apparently interested in recombinant human insulin first.
And that focus shows you exactly where the scientific momentum was at the time, solving the problem of reliable, mass-produced human proteins. This required immense scientific faith and investment, bringing together a really heavy-hitting initial scientific advisory board featuring giants like Leroy Hood.
Right.
They were essentially creating the playbook for the modern biotech company as they went along.
And that early faith was pretty quickly rewarded with capital. By June 17th, 1983, Amgen executed a successful initial public offering. They raised nearly $40 million by selling 2 million common shares.
And $40 million in 1983 for a company that had virtually no commercial products yet. That was a huge declaration of market confidence in the science itself.
For sure.
That successful IPO provided the essential war chest to bridge that chasm between pure lab research and the lengthy, expensive clinical trials and manufacturing scale-up that would follow. That money was the fuel for their next massive discovery.
Speaking of massive discovery, let's turn to the erythropoietin revolution, the birth of Epogen. I mean, this is truly the scientific achievement that cemented Amgen's future.
This was happening right around the time of the IPO. In 1983, a research team led by Fu-Kun Lin achieved this seminal feat. They successfully cloned the erythropoietin gene.
Can you break down the biology quickly for the listener? What is erythropoietin, or EPO, and what problem did its scarcity create for patients?
Sure. So erythropoietin is a hormone that's primarily produced in the kidneys. It serves one vital function. It signals the bone marrow to produce red blood cells. So patients with chronic kidney failure, especially those on dialysis, they suffer from severe anemia because their damaged kidneys can't produce enough natural EPO.
So before Amgen, what did they do?
Well, before Amgen's breakthrough, these patients often had to rely on really difficult blood transfusions, which were far from ideal and carried a lot of risks.
So by cloning the gene, they could use these specialized cell lines to act as tiny factories, basically,
Right.
producing safe, reliable, and massive quantities of human EPO protein.
Exactly. This recombinant process led directly to Epogen, or epoetin alpha, which received FDA approval in 1989. And this wasn't just a new drug. It created a whole new standard of care.
Right.
It essentially solved the anemia crisis for millions of dialysis and kidney disease patients worldwide and immediately established Amgen as a leading therapeutic company.
The timeline is so impressive. Founded in 1980, they clone the gene in 83 and then have FDA approval by 1989. And they were thinking globally right away. In 1984, they formed a joint venture with Kirin.
Yes. Granting Kirin the rights to Epogen in Japan, securing a strategic foothold in a massive Asian market really early on.
That deal must have been critical.
Oh, it was. It not only secured capital, but also demonstrated an understanding that these breakthroughs needed global commercialization, not just a U.S. market focus.
But the breakthroughs didn't stop there. Their second major development tackled a different, but an equally critical aspect of blood disorders. Neutropenia treatment with Neupogen.
Just a year after the Kirin deal, in 1985, another key Amgen team, this one led by Larry Souza, cloned granulocyte colony stimulating factor, or GCSF.
And GCSF is sort of the white blood cell equivalent of EPO, correct?
Precisely. GCSF stimulates the production of granulocytes, which are white blood cells that are essential for fighting off bacterial infections.
And the immediate target population was chemotherapy patients.
Right. Chemotherapy is, well, it's a blunt instrument. It kills cancer cells, but it also destroys rapidly dividing immune cells. This leads to a severely suppressed immune system, a condition called neutropenia.
Which leaves patients highly vulnerable to life-threatening infections.
Exactly. And Neupogen, or filgrastim, provided the essential support.
So how did it do that?
Well, it was approved by the FDA in 1991, and Neupogen allowed patients to continue their chemotherapy regimens with much greater safety. Where Epogen addressed red blood cell deficiency, Neupogen addressed white blood cell deficiencies.
And both from the same core tech.
These two drugs, both derived from the same foundational recombinant DNA technology, established Amgen as an absolute powerhouse in supportive care for two major chronic diseases, kidney failure and cancer.
And the company was scaling its operations to match that scientific output. We see Gordon Binder succeeding George Rathman as CEO in late 1988, which was right before the Epogen launch.
Yeah, and operationally, they made huge investments.
Yeah.
In March 1993, they opened their facility in Puerto Rico, which rapidly became their flagship manufacturing site. You can't produce complex, high-volume biologics like these without massive, dedicated, specialized infrastructure.
And the quality of their work was recognized at the highest level. In 1994, Amgen was only the 5th company ever to receive the National Medal of Technology and Innovation.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, specifically for improving the quality of life for kidney and cancer patients through these revolutionary medicines.
That is a phenomenal historical marker. It just confirms the transformative societal impact of their initial products.
Yet the innovation didn't stop once they had the drug. They immediately began optimizing the drug delivery itself. Which brings us to Aranesp, or darbepoetin alpha.
Developed by Steve Elliott's team in the mid-1990s.
Right.
And this is a beautiful example of chemical ingenuity applied to a blockbuster molecule. Elliott's team figured out how to use N-glycosylation, which is essentially attaching more sugar molecules to the original erythropoietin structure.
Why do that? I mean, it sounds like a subtle change, but it had massive implications for patients.
It absolutely did. In biological terms, adding those sugar molecules dramatically increased the half-life of the protein in the bloodstream. The original Epogen required pretty frequent injections, which is a real burden for chronic patients.
So Aranesp.
Aranesp, by lasting significantly longer, meant patients needed injections much less often, maybe weekly or even biweekly instead of multiple times a week.
That's a massive improvement in patient convenience and compliance. It takes a successful life-saving drug and makes it dramatically more manageable for the user. It ensures compliance stays high and maximizes its commercial lifespan.
It illustrates that continuous optimization in formulation science is just as vital as the initial discovery. Aranesp, as we'll see, is still a major revenue driver 2 decades later because of that early optimization effort.
Okay, that gives us the historical bedrock, that moment they established their identity through recombinant DNA. Now, let's fast forward and examine what the modern Amgen portfolio looks like, especially the drugs driving over $20 billion in annual revenue today. Here's where it gets really interesting, looking at the therapeutic areas that are generating those massive 2024 revenue figures. I mean, while Epogen and Neupogen built the house, today's financial engine is focused heavily on bone health, inflammation, and sophisticated targeted oncology.
Let's begin with their sheer dominance in bone health. Their paired products, Prolia and Xgeva, which both use the molecule denosumab, are absolutely essential to the company's financials.
Essential is the word.
Their combined 2024 revenues hit $6.7 billion. That's a powerful concentration of revenue stemming from a single versatile mechanism.
Prolia specifically targets osteoporosis, and the clinical data supporting its use is just stellar. Trials showed it reduced the rate of vertebral fractures by 61% and the risk of hip fractures by 40%.
That was for postmenopausal women. It was approved back in 2010.
Right. And that reduction in hip fracture risk is a defining characteristic. A hip fracture is a massive morbidity and mortality driver in the elderly population.
It really is.
Yeah.
But what sets denosumab apart from the older treatments, like bisphosphonates, which really dominated the market before it?
That's a crucial point. Denosumab operates differently. It's a monoclonal antibody that specifically blocks something called the rank ligand, or ANKL.
Okay.
By stopping RANKL from activating osteoclasts, those are the cells that break down bone, it prevents bone loss and increases bone density. Older bisphosphonates work by inducing osteoclast suicide, which is a much less targeted mechanism. Denosumab offers a more precise, high-efficacy solution.
Which justifies its market dominance.
Exactly. And the commercial brilliance is the dual application. Xgeva, approved the same year, uses the exact same mechanism, denosumab, but it's targeted at cancer patients.
Right, to prevent skeletal-related events in patients whose solid tumors have metastasized to the bone.
So, same science, different patient population. Prolia helps prevent general age-related bone loss, and Xgeva helps cancer patients avoid pathological fractures, spinal compression, or the need for radiation to the bone. That strategic versatility just maximizes the return on the denosumab discovery.
And they really cemented this market leadership with Evinity, or romosozumab. It's another osteoporosis treatment approved in 2019. It generated $1.5 billion in 2024.
So they're not resting.
No. This shows they are constantly innovating within their strongest therapeutic areas.
Moving into the autoimmune and inflammation portfolio, we find another massive historic blockbuster, Enbrel, or etanercept.
This drug is a legacy product from their 2002 Immunix acquisition. And despite its age and all the competition, it still generated $3.3 billion in 2024 for various forms of arthritis and chronic inflammatory diseases.
Wow.
Enbrel remains a flagship biologic for rheumatoid arthritis. Its longevity really underscores the clinical value of targeting TNF-alpha, a key inflammatory molecule.
But maintaining that revenue has to be challenging.
Oh, incredibly. They face constant pressure from biosimilars. These are lower-cost approved versions of the original biologic, which necessitates aggressive commercial defenses and specialized patient support programs.
That's the definition of a mature market fighter. Then we have Otezla, or apremilast, generating $2.1 billion in 2024 revenues.
Otezla is used primarily for psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis, and it's a key oral treatment, which contrasts with all the injectable biologics.
And that oral dosing form gives it a major advantage.
A huge advantage for patients hesitant to start injectable biologics. It often serves as a highly effective earlier-line treatment. And critically, Amgen has continuously expanded its addressable market. They secured approval in 2021 for adults with plaque psoriasis of any severity level.
Which massively increased the pool of potential users.
Absolutely.
And we must not overlook Tepezza, or teprotumumab. This was acquired via the Horizon deal, and it's a highly specialized drug used for Graves' ophthalmopathy, a debilitating condition affecting the eyes.
And it contributed $1.8 billion in 2024 revenues. This showcases their move toward ultra-specialty, high-price, low-volume drugs, a strategic theme we'll definitely return to.
That move feels very deliberate.
Oh, it is. High-value rare disease treatments often have more predictable revenue streams and are less susceptible to the intense price pressure faced by the high-volume drugs.
Let's pivot to cardiovascular and metabolism, a growing and highly competitive sector. Their major play here is Repatha, or evolocumab.
Repatha is a treatment for hyperlipidemia, or high cholesterol, approved back in 2015. It brought in $2.3 billion in 2024. It belongs to the PCSK9 inhibitor class, which works by dramatically lowering LDL, or bad cholesterol.
Which significantly reduces cardiovascular risk. But that $2.3 billion market position is intensely contested, isn't it?
Oh, fiercely. They're fighting rivals like Regeneron's Proluent and increasingly innovative RNA-based drugs like Novartis's Leqvio. The competition in the PCSK9 space is just brutal, making Repatha's revenue stability a significant achievement.
And that market tension is so high that it spills directly into the courtroom, a point that, as you mentioned, is crucial to understanding the company's operational risks later in our discussion.
Absolutely.
Finally, let's look at their core oncology and blood disorders portfolio, which builds directly on that epogenupogen heritage. Keeperallis, a treatment for multiple myeloma, generated $1.5 billion in 2024.
Keprolis, or carfilzomib, is a proteasome inhibitor, a really key drug in that specific cancer treatment pathway. And Nplate, or romiplastim, regulates platelet production, generating $1.4 billion.
Which relates directly back to their legacy in stimulating blood cell growth, just focusing on different components of the blood system.
Exactly. And Aranesp, the second-generation EPO drug, is still a significant earner at $1.3 billion in 2024, demonstrating the extreme longevity of a well-engineered biologic.
It's amazing.
And to compete across the entire market, Amgen employs this smart dual strategy, developing original blockbusters and manufacturing biosimilars. Their biosimilars, like Mvasi, Kanjinti, and Riabni, they allow them to capture market share from other biologics whose patents have expired, providing lower-cost options and ensuring they have products spanning all price points.
So in summary, Amgen's current financial engine is fueled by established, high-value chronic disease management with Prolia and Enbrel, a strong presence in complex blood and cancer treatments, and a shrewd pivot toward high-growth, high-value, rare disease markets.
It's a portfolio that demands continuous, aggressive strategic maneuvers to maintain that size and profitability. The focus now is less on discovering the next EPO and more on strategically buying and building the next generation of specialized revenue streams.
Which is the perfect transition into how they fuel that growth engine, strategic acquisitions and infrastructure build-out. Amgen's history confirms that internal R&D is, it's really only half the story. Strategic acquisition has always been a core growth engine for them, allowing them to rapidly gain market access and bolster their pipeline.
Historically, their moves were transformative. The 2002 acquisition of Immunix Corporation was just. It was epoch-making. It instantly brought them the blockbuster Enbrel and cemented their role in the inflammation market.
And later, the Onyx Pharmaceuticals deal.
Right, the 2013 acquisition of Onyx secured major oncology assets. But if we look at their recent activity, there's a distinct high-stakes shift.
How so?
The strategy is hyper-focused on securing specialized assets, often for rare or highly complex diseases. This helps diversify their risk and, crucially, provides some insulation from payer and pharmacy benefit manager or PBM pressure that often targets those high-volume chronic drugs.
And the recent deals are just massive. They're very telling of this strategic pivot. Take ChemoCentryx in 2022, acquired for $3.7 billion cash.
This was purely focused on rare diseases, adding Tavneos or Evacopan. It's a drug to treat anti-neutrophil cytoplasmic autoantibody-associated vasculitis. A mouthful, I know, but a very serious, specific autoimmune condition.
Paying $3.7 billion for a drug that treats such a specific, rare disease really demonstrates the economic calculus at play, doesn't it?
Absolutely. These treatments, while having fewer patients, command extremely high prices, leading to more predictable revenues that are less threatened by generics or broad PBM exclusion lists.
And then the absolute monster of a deal. Horizon Therapeutics acquired in 2023 for $27.8 billion.
Yeah.
Horizon specializes entirely in rare diseases, bringing in Tepezza, that Graves' ophthalmopathy drug, and several other specialty treatments.
And it's crucial to pause on Horizon's corporate structure here, as noted in the sources. Horizon was originally incorporated in Ireland back in 2014 through a tax inversion.
So by acquiring a company structured that way, Amgen is willing to navigate some pretty complex international corporate and tax frameworks to secure these highly valuable rare disease assets.
The $27.8 billion price tag confirms that specialized market access is now their highest priority growth vector.
We also saw the acquisition of 5 Prime Therapeutics in 2021 for $1.9 billion.
Right, and this was a very targeted acquisition, specifically aimed at enhancing their Asia-Pacific oncology market share. It added the lead candidate bemarituzumab.
So it shows a simultaneous focus on rare disease consolidation in the West and targeted pipeline expansion in high-growth international regions.
The acquisition strategy is layered. Domestic rare disease consolidation, massive international rare disease expansion, and targeted geographic pipeline boosts.
But growth isn't just about buying. Amgen actively builds. They are continuously expanding their high-tech manufacturing and R&D facilities all over the globe.
which shows a deep commitment to controlling the complex production process for biologics end-to-end.
Their global footprint is robust. They completed a next-generation biomanufacturing facility in Singapore in 2014 and expanded infrastructure in West Greenwich, Rhode Island, starting in 2018.
More recently, we see this massive commitment to domestic manufacturing security and supply chain resiliency, particularly post-COVID. They broke ground on a new high-tech facility in Holly Springs, North Carolina in 2022.
And the future investment figures are telling. In April 2025, they announced a $900 million expansion of their facility in New Albany, Ohio.
Which is expected to nearly double job creation there.
And they aren't neglecting their roots. In September 2025, plans were announced for a $600 million research center in Thousand Oaks, California.
And why spend $1.5 billion combined on Ohio manufacturing and California research? Because manufacturing biologics is intensely complex and specialized. This spending ensures they have redundant, specialized capacity for new product launches. It secures their supply chain against global geopolitical instability, and it reinvests in the pure discovery engine right at headquarters.
That kind of internal spending really underscores that acquisitions are necessary, but they still view controlling cutting-edge manufacturing and internal discovery as non-negotiable strategic pillars.
And their global commercial commitment is cemented by affiliate expansion in key markets. They opened their China affiliate in 2013 and established Amgen KK as a wholly owned affiliate in Japan in April 2020.
Taking full control of their Japanese presence?
Exactly. Asia is clearly baked in to their long-term growth forecast.
So this whole strategic growth section paints a picture of a dynamic, aggressive, and highly capitalized company that uses both its checkbook and its construction crews to secure its future position.
They buy the best assets, and they ensure they have the physical specialized capacity worldwide to produce and distribute them efficiently.
Now let's turn our attention to the cutting edge. What are they betting on for the next generation of blockbusters, and what new science are they chasing?
When we talk about future bets, we first need to just grasp the sheer scope of their current research pipeline. They currently have 17 clinical programs in Phase 3.
8 in Phase 2 and 19 in Phase 1.
Well,
that volume 44 active programs across all phases, that's the cost of doing business in biopharma. It provides the necessary diversification to hedge against the high attrition rate that's just inherent in clinical development. They're casting a wide, multi-billion-dollar net. Let's zoom in on a few specific programs, starting with a breakthrough that defined Amgen the capacity to solve historically undruggable problems. The KRAS G12C breakthrough with Lumakras or sotorasib.
This development is arguably one of the most exciting recent milestones in targeted oncology. Yeah. The KRAS protein is mutated in a massive percentage of human cancers, and for the last 40 years, it was considered a holy grail. It was untouchable by traditional small molecules.
Why was it considered impossible to drug?
Well, it was a technical hurdle. KRAS is structurally very smooth. It lacks a suitable deep binding pocket where a traditional small molecule drug could latch on and interfere with its function.
It's like trying to grab a billiard ball.
Exactly. It's like trying to stop a billiard ball with a tiny key. You need a very specific, unique mechanism. Amgen sotorasib found a temporary transient pocket specific to the G12C mutation, and that effectively drugged the undruggable.
And sotorasib broke that barrier. It was granted Fast Track designation in 2019 and received accelerated FDA approval in May 2021 for NSCLC patients with that specific KRAS mutation.
Which was the first approved targeted therapy for any KRAS mutation.
That first-in-class status is a major scientific validation.
And the clinical outcomes followed. A September 2022 late-stage study showed that Lumakras actually beat standard chemotherapy in trials, which is the gold standard proof of efficacy in cancer treatment.
It provides a superior, more targeted option for a patient population that previously had very few choices. And reflecting that complexity and innovation, the list price was noted at $17,900 per month upon approval.
Yeah, which underscores the high investment required to solve problems that decades of research just couldn't crack.
Okay, moving on. Let's look at their collaboration with AstraZeneca on Tezspire, or tezepelumab, which is focused on severe asthma and sinusitis.
Tezspire received FDA approval in December 2021 for severe asthma. It's a mechanism that targets the TSLP pathway, which sits upstream of many other inflammation pathways.
Which means it potentially addresses a wider range of the underlying causes of severe asthma than existing biologics.
Exactly. And its market potential is expanding rapidly beyond asthma. Positive data from March 2025 showed best-in-class results for treating chronic rhinosinusitis with nasal polyps,
So it could establish a best-in-disease profile across multiple inflammatory diseases of the airway.
potentially turning it into a multi-indication platform drug.
That versatility is crucial for fueling billion-dollar growth. But if we're talking about market potential and headlines, we have to talk about Maritide, the high-stakes anti-obesity candidate.
The race in the cardiometabolic and anti-obesity market is the single biggest narrative in biopharma right now, and Amgen is fielding a highly differentiated contender with Maritide. Their focus is on differentiating on convenience and efficacy,
And the key differentiator for Maritide is the dosing schedule, right? It's administered once per month by injection.
which is a massive convenience advantage compared to the current market leaders that require weekly injections.
Yeah.
Late-stage trials began in March 2025, putting Amgen in a strong competitive position. However, this therapeutic area is notorious for side effects, and Amgen hit that wall early.
Yes, the dosage challenge. In June 2025, they announced they had to reduce the dosage of the drug in ongoing trials to limit gastrointestinal side effects, predominantly vomiting.
Which is the primary hurdle for patient retention in the whole GLP-1 class.
But here's a critical data point that keeps the market incredibly excited. Despite requiring a dosage reduction, patients who continued taking the drug still lost approximately 20% of their body weight.
Which puts Maritide squarely in that highly competitive 15 to 22% weight loss range achieved by the current injectable market leaders.
So if Amgen can finalize a monthly dose that manages the side effects while retaining that 20% efficacy,
The convenience factor alone could make Maritide a dominant force and easily a multi-billion-dollar product. That potential is absolutely transformative.
finally, let's look at their innovative R&D collaborations. These show they are actively pursuing the next 3 major waves of drug discovery outside of their traditional recombinant platform.
The integration of artificial intelligence is key. The November 2023 partnership with Amazon Web Services, AWS, is important because they're using generative AI and machine learning not just for discovering new drug candidates.
But also, critically, for optimizing their highly specialized biologic manufacturing process.
And that manufacturing optimization is often overlooked. AI can help predict yields, reduce batch failures, and optimize complex purification steps, leading to significant cost savings and improve supply reliability for these, $33 billion in revenue products.
Beyond AI, they are deeply invested in next-generation therapeutics. They have a massive collaboration with Generate Biomedicines, potentially worth up to $1.9 billion.
Focused on multispecific drugs.
And what are those?
Multispecifics are molecules, often large proteins, designed to simultaneously bind to and influence 2 or more biological targets. Instead of a drug hitting target A, you have one drug hitting target A and target B.
Potentially creating a much more powerful synergistic effect and reducing the likelihood of resistance.
Exactly. And they are exploring other novel targeting methods. Collaborations with Arrakis Therapeutics for novel targeted RNA degrader therapeutics and Plexium for targeted protein degradation therapies.
These are the bleeding edge of science.
Oh, absolutely. RNA degraders aim to destroy the messenger RNA, the mRNA that carries the instructions for making a harmful protein. It's like preventing the factory from ever receiving the blueprint.
And targeted protein degradation.
That uses the cell's own internal waste disposal machinery to label and destroy disease-causing proteins that have already been made.
So Amgen is not resting on its history of cloning DNA. They are actively pursuing AI-driven design, multi-target drugs, and sophisticated internal destruction pathways, the technologies that will define biopharma for the next few decades.
That robust pipeline strategy confirms they intend to remain a cutting-edge scientific leader.
Now, let's shift gears and look at the company's broader corporate responsibilities, including their significant philanthropic work and the inevitable and costly legal scrutiny that comes with operating at this staggering scale. A company of Amgen's stature has a huge societal impact that extends far beyond drug sales, particularly through the Amgen Foundation, which has a very targeted focus on science education.
That focus makes perfect sense given their history as a science-first company. They see investing in the next generation of scientists as a core part of their mission.
Right.
They pledged $3 million in 2017 and another $3 million in 2020 to Khan Academy, specifically to support the development of free online biology lessons, promoting educational equity globally.
That's a direct investment in global scientific literacy. They also partnered with Harvard University in January 2020 to debut Lab Exchange,
A free online science education platform offering virtual labs and complex simulations. These programs are crucial because they democratize access to high-quality science education, which is otherwise often restricted by geography or cost.
And the foundation also demonstrated rapid responsiveness during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Committing up to $12.5 million for relief efforts in March 2020.
And in terms of patient advocacy, they provided a $2 million grant to the CDC Foundation in 2021 to launch the Empowered Health Program,
which focuses on promoting patient engagement in cancer treatment decision-making. That demonstrates a recognition of the importance of informed consent and patient autonomy in these complex care pathways.
Beyond the foundation, they engage in typical corporate branding efforts, like securing the title sponsorship of the Irish Open in golf, rebranding it the Amgen Irish Open in late 2023.
Maintaining global visibility across different demographics.
Now let's address their political engagement. Lobbying is, it's an absolute necessity for any company operating in a highly regulated, high-stakes sector like biopharma.
Our sources indicate that Amgen spends approximately $10 million per year on lobbying in the United States. That figure reflects the intense and continuous nature of legislative and regulatory battles, particularly concerning drug pricing, reimbursement, and of course, patent protection.
And maintaining strict impartiality here, we just note that their political contributions have been mostly directed toward individuals and organizations associated with the Democratic Party. This is simply a reporting of the data available on their political activities.
It demonstrates their necessity to engage across the political landscape to manage regulatory risk.
For sure. But the complexity of their operation is never clearer than when we juxtapose their scientific achievements with their corporate legal failures.
It's jarring, isn't it? To see a company spending nearly $28 billion to acquire assets and investing hundreds of millions in groundbreaking research, while simultaneously paying huge fines for illegal marketing tactics.
How do we reconcile that complexity?
It's the tension between the scientific mission and the commercial imperative, and the legal system often steps in when the latter overrides the former. And we have two significant legal issues we must detail.
Let's start with the older but very serious case involving Aranesp, that second-generation EPO drug. In December 2012, Amgen pleaded guilty and agreed to a massive settlement for improper marketing.
The settlement was staggering, $762 million. It was broken down into a $150 million criminal penalty and a $612 million civil resolution. But what's crucial here is how the improper marketing occurred and why it was so problematic.
The source material indicates that the case resolved 11 related whistleblower complaints. According to the Department of Justice, Amgen was promoting and selling the drug for off-label uses, so uses not approved by the FDA, at dosages that the FDA had explicitly rejected or never approved.
And that detail is the critical lesson in corporate governance. When a company promotes dosages that regulatory bodies have deemed unsafe or ineffective, or attempts to expand indications outside of what has been clinically proven, they cross a major ethical and legal line.
And the whistleblowers brought it to light.
Right, who are often company insiders. They brought this serious misconduct to light, which led to that massive financial accountability.
That's a stark reminder that even the most scientifically advanced companies are subject to, human greed and ethical failures in the pursuit of revenue maximization.
And the legal challenges continue in the modern era, shifting from marketing practices to intense antitrust issues. This brings us right back to Repatha, their $2.3 billion cholesterol drug.
This issue is very recent. In May 2025, a jury ruled that Amgen owes Regeneron $406 million. Why?
For engaging in anticompetitive practices to increase sales of Repatha at the expense of Regeneron's competing drug, Proliant.
And this antitrust ruling is highly instructive about market conduct.
It is. The issue centered on whether Amgen used its dominant position, likely through exclusionary contracts or rebates with the major U.S. distribution channels, perhaps even those three wholesalers we discussed earlier, to essentially block Proliant from competing effectively in the market.
So the argument is that Amgen's commercial tactics went beyond normal competition and actively stifled the market, resulting in a huge financial penalty.
It demonstrates that maintaining market dominance requires constant vigilance against monopolistic behavior charges. The narrative of Amgen is therefore defined by high achievement and high accountability. They're solving undruggable cancers and funding vast educational resources, but they're also paying hundreds of millions in penalties for both marketing misuse and anti-competitive market tactics in highly lucrative arenas. That complexity, the high highs and the low lows, is the enduring reality of being a modern biotech giant.
Wow. If we synthesize this journey, we have traveled from Amgen, starting as the small venture-backed startup in 1980, dedicated to cloning the DNA of complex human proteins, to a global multi-trillion-dollar market participant defined by scale and strategic aggression.
They define the entire early life cycle of biotechnology with foundational blockbusters like Apigen and Neupogen, built massive market dominance in chronic care with products like Prolia and Enbrel, and are now pivoting strategically into the rare disease market with acquisitions like that $27.8 billion purchase of Horizon Therapeutics.
And they are betting massive sums on the future, too, with candidates like Maritide in the high-stakes anti-obesity markets and pioneering the integration of generative AI into both drug discovery and manufacturing optimization.
Amgen's operational identity is ultimately defined by a dynamic balance: unmatched scientific achievement, aggressive commercial growth, and this continuous navigation of high-stakes legal and ethical environments, illustrated so vividly by both the Ernest marketing settlement and the recent Repatha antitrust ruling. Their history is synonymous with the entire evolution of the biotech industry.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've seen Amgen achieve its first and most enduring successes through the revolutionary science of recombinant DNA, the genetic cloning of EPO and GCSF. They are now investing heavily in AI integration and new modalities like targeted protein degradation and RNA degraders.
Which raises an important and I think a provocative question for you to mull over. Given that Amgen defined its first era on DNA and is now chasing the future with AI and degradation technology, what technological foundation will it be? AI-driven design, the specificity of targeted degradation, or maybe even just the monthly convenience of a drug like Maritide? What will be responsible for defining the next $10 billion blockbuster drug in the biopharma industry?
Something to think about long after we sign off. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Amgen Inc. We hope you feel thoroughly informed.
Until next time.